All right, we're still trying to get through this board meeting. I know it's painful, and this particular segment is particularly painful. It's just very boring. Anyway, I was thinking about this. You know, some people like me think about these things better than to think about this than politics and what's going on in the world. This is much better than that, so that's why I put so much time into it, because it distracts me from the reality of the world. But I was thinking about this, and I remembered what we came up with last year when we were discussing this. And it was the questions, the way they have the questions structured. They have it strongly agree, agree, strongly disagree, disagree. That's their choices. They have four choices. And when we were discussing this last year, or maybe it was the year before, I've completely lost track of time at this point. But anyway, we figured out that the reason that this is so positive for Trimet is the way that it's set up. What they really needed to do was have three questions: good, fair, poor. That would be a much more fair kind of survey if you gave people clear choices. But they don't do that, and they don't do that on purpose, and that's simply to make sure that they get the result that they want. That's why you can't believe surveys like this, because they're not asking three questions: a good, fair, poor. Everything should be worded in to give an answer that will be either good, fair, or poor, instead of agree, strongly agree, disagree, strong. That's just, that's just phony. So anyway, let's continue this presentation on the survey.
Responses of the non-writers tended to fall. Do they know enough about Trimet to rate the quality of service or whatever, or do they tend to fall into the less favorable categories?
Well, certainly overall, writers, especially frequent regular writers, are more positive about Trimet. Mm-hmm. It didn't necessarily look that non-writers were negative, mm-hmm. But the level of positivity is certainly higher among writers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As I said in an earlier clip, I want to see a survey of frequent writers. That's 3 days a week or more, and see if, I doubt very much they're going to get anything near this result if they actually interviewed frequent writers. Okay, I have a hard time believing most of this.
The other question I had is on slide 25. Oops, not wrong. I tried to stick my finger in there and lost it after a while. It's the graphic that shows the, oh God, I wish I could. Anyhow, it's the one where you were talking about cost is not a driver.
Yes. Slide 20, 23, 24.
Right. So 23 is, why do you write more? Cost was sort of lower down in there.
Yeah. And my question is that we have not increased fares in 5 years. If we had had regular small fare increases, would cost become more of a driver?
That's a question that's hard for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it probably would move up on the list at some point.
Yeah.
It's how much is it increasing, how quickly is it increasing, and what else is happening in the economy. Mm-hmm. So if you increase fares during a down period of the economy, it's likely to have more of an impact than if you're increasing fares during an up period in the economy.
Mm-hmm.
When you recall that when Trimet got rid of Fairless Square and got rid of the zones, they made everybody pay a minimum of $2.50. And they were trying to get people to pay $5. Okay, that's what they really wanted, was people to buy round-trip tickets. And $2.50 is not a good deal to go a short trip, say PSU to the Greyhound terminal. Why? It's better than a cab, I suppose, but it's not, for public transportation standards, it's not a good deal. I mean, you can go to Boston and get a $1 ride on a bus down Commonwealth Ave for a long ways, okay? And TriMet doesn't have that low-cost fare for short trips, and getting rid of that definitely impacted the fares. And plus, TriMet's unfair to the bus riders in the sense that bus riders have to pay the same fare as Max riders and West riders, and the Max covers so much more distance than the bus, and the West is basically a luxury ride that should be charged around $5 to $7.50 one way, you know, like all commuter rail systems do, other than TriMet. But of course, TriMet is scared to do that because then it's already crappy ridership on the thing. It was a complete waste of money, and they spend millions to keep it going. But they don't ask for more than $2.50. So I mean, TriMet has all kinds of bad implications of their fare structure. It's definitely discriminatory against short trip riders.
And I think we have found when we just look at lots of considerations from the public, what do they value, what are their beliefs, and fare price is not a top driver because they're looking at that in comparison to cost to them. It's not just the price of the fare, but how much is parking, how much time am I going to spend if I drive myself. So, you know, time is part of cost. So I think there are a lot of moving parts into the definition of cost, and it would be worth for the staff to explore how people define cost now in relationship to their decision around TriMet.
And she's your typical bureaucrat overcomplicating a fairly simple issue. You know, it should be obvious that, I mean, my comment about a short trip down the transit mall not being worth $2.50, you don't need a committee to study that. That's obvious.
Okay. Thank you.
I wonder how much work you can get done on the bus compared to driving the car.
Sure.
I wonder, just curious. So I'll spend the extra maybe 10 minutes on the bus, don't have to drive,
Right.
but I can, what's the phrase? Communicate. Okay.
Right, well, certainly
That's one of the major misconceptions and phony. That's fake advertising. You see this all the time in public transportation advertising videos. People get on the bus, it's all nice, everybody's happy, plenty of room, and they sit down and read and have a great time. That's just phony. It's just not even true. It's not even close to being true. You know, all the buses are packed, okay? If you haven't been on the TriMet system during rush hour, you have no idea. It's packed, okay? There's no room to do your work. The rails are packed, the buses are packed. They talk about ridership not going up, but one of the reasons it's not going up is because they can't even haul any more people. They've gotten rid of so many buses that the buses are capacity now. Okay, they're running trains that are 3/4 empty at night, but there's no buses to. They cut back all the buses that used to do all the heavy work. So no, the idea that you can do your work on transit, maybe on West you can do that because that's such a sparsely ridden, but the idea, you know, I think of the 57, for example, who I happen to have my girlfriend who drives that, and she's, you know, it's packed every trip. You can't do anything on there. You're lucky if you get home without having some kind of issue. So you hear these advertising, oh, come on the bus and get your work done. There's so much bullshit. There's so much bullshit involved with public transportation advertising.
under that convenience and comfort, right? It's less stressful. I can do other things.
Yeah.
That is a attraction to TriMet or public transit.
Right.
I met my husband on the Max, so.
Yeah, well, I'm sure she did. And I mean, that happens too. I mean, you know, God.
Hey, for
Quality of life. All about quality of life.
There's no swiping for me. And a little more perspective to context is, you know, the TriMet's favorability. It's when we come in here and say high favorability, 80%. I'm here to tell you, most public agencies are in the you know, the mid 40s to at highest, you know, 65%. So you're well above.
Do you think that's true? Do you really believe it? I mean, I don't see it from my daily observations. But of course, I'm actually watching the people who are on the transit. That's the Twitter, and I'm actually listening to the dispatch and the control. And they're trying to tell me 80%, all the things that are going on the transit system every day. It's constant. You don't have any idea how much shit. I mean, I only post 1% of the dispatch control calls. You have no idea how much shit is going on there. They're trying to tell us that everybody loves the Trimet. I don't know. Does you think it's true? I'd like to see somebody else who is not paid by Trimet to conduct that study. That's what all scientific studies need confirmation. You don't just get one study and say this is it. You have an outside independent study too to confirm, and of course we're not going to get that. Nobody does that. So we're supposed to believe whatever she says. So Trimet is the most beloved agency in the Portland area. I know Portland City is not like, okay, Metro, what the hell, Metro, what the hell do they even do? I have a hard time believing that 8 out of 10 Portland area residents think Trimet is this wonderful.
Good job, Brady.
Are you going to come down with us to Salem and make sure you can get the message out?
I will look for the invite.
Okay.
Are there any more questions for Bernie or our presenters?
No.
Did not? Oh, thank you all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll move on now to our final report for this afternoon. Kimberly Akamoto, the Manager of Records Governance, is here and will update our records.
Hey, look who's here. It's Kimberly Akamoto. We all know her, those of us that have filed public records requests, and now we actually get to see who she is. You see, this is why this is so interesting to watch. This is the only chance you're going to get to see the executive culture and all these various administrators. It's only the board meeting where you can peek inside of the Trimet, very secretive society. You get a little tiny view at the board meeting. Remember, the board meetings are highly scripted, but at least you see something. So here's a woman that, I don't know if she's still doing the public records, but I had multiple from her. She was generally all right. I think I got a couple of snide responses, but I think she was generally okay.
In Governance Initiative, Kimberly and Mr. General Manager.
I'll turn this over. Just maybe by way of background, remember that we've had a report to the board on a regular basis about our response to a number of, actually, Secretary of State's audit, as well as other issues that we sort of recognized we needed to improve our performance related to records management. And Kimberly's been on a long work program, and this is a status report of where we are with all of that and where we're headed.
For the people that actually take the time to watch this stuff, and I know it's not too many, but there are a few, you might remember that the Secretary of State was ordered to do an audit after the scandal involving McFarland giving all himself and all of his buddies raises at the same time he cut service and cut the benefits of his workers. He secretly gave himself a raise and all of his friends a raise at the exact same time, but they didn't tell anybody publicly. It was all hidden. So the Secretary of State ordered an audit, and the audit was a complete whitewash. Okay, it was a complete whitewash. They never even dealt with the question of the raises in the audit, but that was conducted by Kate Brown, and these are all insiders. These are the so-called light rail mafia people, and that includes Kate Brown and Neil McFarland and blah-de-blah. All of them are together, comprise the so-called mafia. They didn't deal with anything that had to do with the reason that the audit was ordered, but they had all this other stuff, including Trimet's too secretive. And so let's see what she has to say.
Really?
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on the Records Governance Initiative. This, as our GM said, this is the fourth of continuing status updates on the Records Governance Initiative since we first launched it in the fall of 2013. So the focus of this initiative is on records governance, and records governance encompasses more than traditional records management. It really is a framework or strategy for controlling records in a way that encourages compliance, mitigates risks, and aligns to corporate governance policies.
Before we go on, let me mention, see, I actually do know a lot about Trimet. I've been following this stuff a long time, and I'm take it very seriously. Remember, Trimet did another study, and they hired another group of people, similar to DHM, to conduct a study of their public records system. And, of course, it came back like DHM. They're doing a great job, and everybody loves it. But what we found out was that the people who did that study didn't contact even one consumer who asked for public records from Trimet, not even one. And this is the kind of crap we get from Trimet authorized studies. They're always predetermined outcomes, and Trimet is always looking like the beautiful, best agency in the world.
So what we're looking to do is to elevate our former records management program into more of a records governance program and look for ways to work together to better govern our records and information assets. Everyone in the agency is a stakeholder in this effort because this touches upon many different disciplines, including not only records management, but also legal, information technology, and all of the business units. The initiative has been steadily progressing in phases, and as you may recall, the primary objectives of phase 1 was really to get an idea of where we were. So we looked to assess the our current record keeping status at that time, also to develop a strategy for.
So looking at that chart, you see this started in 2013. This is 2017. This is your bureaucracies. This is 4 years later. They still haven't implemented. This is typical from government bureaucracy. This is how they do business, man. Stretch it out as long as possible, convoluted, make it complicated. This is your typical government bureaucracy here. 4 years later, they're still talking about this.
Improvement. We're also looking at investigating the possibility of procuring and implementing an enterprise content management system, or ECM for short. We engaged iMerge Consulting to assist us in these efforts, and they presented
another pork barrel contract to, because Trimet doesn't have the staff to figure it out, so they hired another consultant. 40 years later, look, I got to stop. I mean, I'll never get through this. But it's so hilariously funny to watch these people in action, so we'll finish everything up later.